and welcome back to Neo Psychology of me, your teacher, Mr. Neo, the channel where I teach online psychology lessons for my wonderful students. Today we're carrying on the unit of social influence and we're looking at lesson 8, resistance to social influence. Let's do this! Starter, think about your GCSE grades. How do you think you did? Did you do well? Did you not do well? Why did you get the grades you did? If you did well, why did you do well? If you didn't do well, why didn't you do well? That's what we're going to look at today. Based on research covered in previous lessons, you'd be forgiven for thinking that people are mostly puppets, easily swayed by the force of social pressure to conform or obey. But this is far from the truth. In Ash's studies, the most common behaviour was not conformity, and even in Milgram's studies, a healthy minority of participants refused to fully obey. There have always been people who resist social influence, but why? Part of the reason for their resistance to social influence may lie with the social support provided by others, standing firm against peer pressure, or resisting the demands of a harmful authority figure is easier if you have an ally. Other explanations emphasize the importance of specific personality characteristics, locus of control, that provide an individual with the means of remaining independent in the face of pressure from those around them. So, there are two explanations of why some people have the ability to withstand social pressure or to resist social influence, to conform to the majority or to obey an authority figure. Today we'll be looking at those two, social support and locus of control. Let's start with social support. Resisting conformity, resisting peer. Pressure to conform is reduced if other people are not conforming. Ash's research showed that the dissenter doesn't have to give the right answer. Simply someone else not following the majority frees others to follow their own conscience. The dissenter acts as a model. The dissenter shows the majority is no longer unanimous. So in Ash's study, when they were doing the line study and everyone was saying one line was the same and the naive real participant didn't think it was that one, when one of the participants, one of the Confederates, so fake participants, went against the rest of the group and the whole group was not unanimous, it was easier to resist conformity. Resisting obedience to authority. Pressure to obey can be reduced if another person is seen to disobey. In one of Milgram's variations, the rate of obedience dropped from 65% to only 10% when the participant was joined by a disobedient confederate. The participant may not follow the disobedient peer, but the dissenter's disobedience frees the participant to act from their own conscience. A disobedient model challenges the legitimacy of the authority figure. So we are more likely to resist obedience to authority when there is someone else that is also disobeying the authority figure. So, social support. What is social support? How does it help us resist social influence? Well, the presence of people who resist pressures to conform or obey can help others to do the same. These people act as models to show others that resistance to social influence is possible. That's what social support is. And if you think about it, it makes sense. When you're with your mates and one of them is doing something naughty, you're more likely to do it and try and get away with it together, rather than you being the one that initiates it. Let's have a look. Application question with Parveen. Parveen is starting a course at a new college, having attended a very strict all-girls school up until now. Her parents are concerned because she is easily influenced by those around her. They fear she will stray from the straight and narrow and will lose the strict values they have strived to instill in her. Parveen's best friend Hayat is also starting at the college at the same time. Using your knowledge of the importance of social support, explain why Parveen will be better able to resist social influence with Hayat's presence. Give that a go, please. quote parts of the question in your answer. Give yourself 5 minutes, write your answer down, actually do it, give it a go. Don't just sit here listening to me. Be an active learner. Here's the answer. Ash's research on conformity found that the presence of social support made it easier for an individual to resist conformity pressure from the majority. For example, Parveen may find herself in a situation with her new peer group where she is pressured to, for example, drink alcohol as everyone else is drinking. Having social support in the form of Hayat breaks the unanimous position of the group because Hayat also declines to drink. This makes Parveen feel more confident and better able to stand up to the majority. Watch this video on resisting conformity in Thailand. Explain why some of the school rules in Thailand change. So, if you go onto YouTube and you type in resisting conformity in Thailand, it's a cool little video showing how they're expected to obey authority, but now they're sort of resisting conformity. Give that a little go. And that was social support. Can you identify one thing you've learned about social support? Why do you think learning about social support is important? What was the hardest part to understand about the social support as a way of resisting social influence? And what questions has this raised for you? Any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'm sure someone will answer them. Learning Objective 1, done. I've ticked it off. We're moving on to Learning Objective 2, Locus of Control. Let's have a look at that one. Rotter, in 1966, described internal versus external locus of control. In the exam, if you don't want to write the whole word, feel free to write it out fully first, then in brackets put the abbreviation, in this case LOC, locus of control, and then from then on you can just write LOC, and that goes for anything in psychology. People with an internal locus of control believe things that happen to them are largely controlled by themselves. For example, doing well or badly in an exam depends on how hard you work. Oh, I did well in the exams because I worked hard. Or I didn't do well in the exams because I didn't work hard enough. You have an internal locus of control. Externals believe things happen outside of their control. If they fail an exam, they say it was because they had a bad teacher, or they had bad luck, or because the questions they had were hard. Oh, the ones I revised didn't come up. You have an external locus of control. So, locus of control is not just being internal or external. There is a scale from one to the other, and people differ in their position on it. High internals at one end and high externals at the other end. Low internals and low externals lie in between. Where do you think you are? Where would you lie? Internals show greater resistance to social influence. People with an internal locus of control are more likely to resist pressures to conform or obey. So 1, if somebody takes personal responsibility for their actions, good or bad, which is what you do if you have an internal locus of control, they are more likely to base their decisions on their own beliefs. People with high internal locus of control are more confident, they're more achievement oriented, and they have higher intelligence, traits that lead to greater resistance, also traits of leaders. So, people with high locus of control are more likely to take responsibility for their actions, and they're typically more confident, and therefore they're going to act on their own behalf and take responsibility for their actions. So, what is locus of control? Locus of control refers to the sense we each have about what directs events in our lives. Internals believe they are mostly what? Responsible for what happens to them. Internal locus of control, whereas externals believe it is mainly a matter of luck or other outside forces. External locus of control. And those people that have an internal locus of control are going to be more likely to resist social influence, and those with an external locus of control are going to be less likely to resist social influence. Using your phones, feel free to go on the website below and complete the quiz to determine your locus of control score. So just Google Psychology Today, locus of control, and it should come up. And that is locus of control. Can you identify one thing you've learned about locus of control? Why do you think learning about this is important? And what was the hardest part to understand about locus of control? If you have any questions, if there's raised any questions, feel free to write them down and ask me in person or in the comments. And that is learning objective 2 done, locus of control. We're going to move on to learning objective 3 to be able to discuss and evaluate resistance to social influence. What are some of the strengths and the limitations of resistance to social influence? There is evidence for social support in resisting conformity. In a program to help pregnant adolescents to resist pressure to smoke, social support was given by an older buddy. These adolescents were less likely to smoke at the end of the program than a control group who did not have a buddy. So if you've got a buddy, you've got social support, and therefore you are less likely to conform. This shows social support can help young people resist social influence in real-world situations. So it's showing, how can we apply this psychological theory to real world? Well, this is how you could do it. We can stop pregnant teens smoking, which is obviously a good thing. Is this support or a limitation? This is a strength. This is support. More real-life application. Social support in real life. The Rosenstrauss protest in Nazi-controlled Berlin in 1943 was a stark illustration of Milgram's research in real life. German women protested against the arrest of their Jewish husbands. Despite threats that they would be fired upon, the women collectively refused orders to disperse, and their husbands were eventually set free. The Rosenstrauss protest mirrors Milgram's findings that the presence of disobedient peers gives an individual the confidence and courage to resist the authorities' orders. So, is this a strength or a limitation? This is a strength. It supports social support. Furthermore, there is evidence for support for locus of control in resisting obedience. Holland repeated the Milgram study, the one of the electric shocks, and measured whether participants were internals or externals. 37% of internals did not continue to the highest shock level. They showed greater resistance, whereas only 23% of externals did not continue. Therefore, resistance partly related to locus of control, increasing the validity of this explanation of disobedience. So this is a strength of locus of control. Can you summarize each evaluative point into your own words? If you want to challenge yourself, can you summarize the evaluative points into exactly 10 words? That's learning objective 3. Done. Ticked off. And there we go. That was lesson 8, resistance to social influence. Next lesson is lesson 9, minority influence. Well done today. Good job, my neo-psychologist. Great job. My name is Mr. Neo. God bless and peace.
I'm feeling like Will. I feel like a prince. I'm feeling myself. I'm loaded with bills. Cause I wasn't blessed with no Uncle Phil. Don't know how it feels. I wanted to flex. They told me to chill. I'm making a flip. My life is a flick. Now load up the film.